Gosh, that's a great question. I don't know if I've ever been asked that. Like, what is the it factor?
The It Factory is back for season 2. Last season, we explored what the It Factory is, who has it, and how they got it. This season, we still seek to answer the same questions, but with a new cast of characters. We take the helmet off some of the new faces in the Conference of Champions, and some familiar faces as well. Players, coaches, and experts will explore what it is that sets them up for success on Saturdays. I'm Yogi Roth, and welcome back to the It Factory. Welcome back, or welcome to the It Factory. I am your host, Yogi Roth. We are presented by Zayo, and here we are at the end of the season. It's crazy to think that rivalry games are upon us. But with that, we had to bring like a rivalry guest, like somebody that I thought might take my job one day. And that's exactly what we have now. Good friend of mine, good friend of the program, and you know him if you track Pac-12 football, and his stardom is just beginning. He hails from Texas, but he calls Pullman home. That's right, it's Ron Stone Jr., the all-everything defensive lineman, edge rusher. He can do it all, including tell a bunch of great stories. So we're counting on that. Ron, welcome to the show, man.
Yeah, Yogi, thank you for having me, man. I'm excited to be here and kind of tell my story.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear it. I mean, we've had different iterations of conversations over the years, right? Whether it's been after practice or early in the morning before practice. You guys practice in the morning. It was freezing that day. I was in Pullman. But with that said, when somebody asks you, hey, tell me a little bit about yourself, what's the first thing that usually comes to mind for you?
Yeah, when I kind of think about myself, I kind of start with my family, and I kind of just give a little background story on that. I'm the youngest of five. I grew up with both my parents, and everything in my household was just competitive. I had two sisters that were collegiate athlete, two that went to the University of Oregon, one volleyball, one track and field, and the other was a cheerleader at TCU. So when I think of myself, I just think of all the competition, the rivalry within my own family. My sister and I, we have this ongoing joke that in 2036 we're gonna have the first Stone Olympics, which is my kids versus their kids, and just to see who's who's really trained them the best from a young age. But yeah, I mean, I think of a competitor and who likes to have fun, who likes to engage with other people and kind of just be in the moment and in the action.
Okay, so tell me about the Olympics, because I bet your dad had that idea first, because
Yes.
he and your family have curated a lot of dynamic athletes.
So it kind of started when we were younger. We used to just do like household athletic competitions, right? Like who could jump rope the longest, who could do the most push-ups, who could, run the farthest. And just all those things where I was like, oh, like I did the most push-ups, oh, but I could hold the handstand the longest, right? And just all these little mini activities to see who could call themselves a winner. And like ever since then, like whether it be family game night, we're playing catchphrase or any type of board game where it's like we are screaming because we are like so excited. No, that's against the rules. Any minor detail we are harping on.
So what was it like for you? Because you grew up in this, bubble of athletic siblings, but your dad was also like this megastar winning Super Bowls. Like, what do you recall about how you identified dad?
Yeah, it was always kind of different growing up because I didn't really remember him playing. I was so young by the time he retired that I don't actually have any vivid memories of him playing. But I do remember, like when I was young, we still had season tickets for the Raiders because that's where he ended his career at. And we used to go to a bunch of those games, and everyone would be like, "Oh, like, are you gonna play football like your dad?" This and that. And I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." And I would beg my mom, like, "Let me play football. Let me play football. Let me play football." And she was like, "No." Like, she was afraid. She was scared for me, And so I started out with flag football all the way until fifth grade, and then that's when I kind of had my debut playing fullback and defensive end. And ever since then, like it's just been so exciting and such a blessing to just play and kind of try to live up a little bit to it, and then also start my own journey, create my own name.
Yeah, what's that balance? And do you recall anything that your dad or mom did to alleviate the desire to live up to it, or maybe encourage it? Curious what the philosophy was in your home.
Yeah, I mean, I think my parents did a great job of not trying to force anything on me, any expectations on me. when it came to athletics. But I think it was more myself and a lot more of just exterior things that kind of had me really like thinking I had to be some type of football superstar, like because like growing up, it was, oh, I'm Ron Stone Jr., like my parents tried or four other times, 5 times to have a boy, and I'm named after my dad. So I was like, I can't, I can't ruin this opportunity. They tried so hard for me that I kind of have to capitalize, and so it was hard at first, kind of just realizing the difference between playing to try to live up to him and playing and living up to my own name. But I mean, I give credit to my parents because they never tried to, set the bar high, or they set the bar high, but not in that regard to where it's like, hey, you need to go pro like your father did, or things like that.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, man. Like, I think a lot of parents struggle with that of, hey, do we tell our kids about our athletic path, or do we let them forge their own? Like,
Yeah.
what do you think it would have been like if you came home and you weren't interested in football, but you're interested in chess, or if you're interested in piano, or
Yeah.
whatever it may have been?
Yeah. No, and I think, I think again, they would have embraced whatever I was into.
Yeah.
My mom tried to force us into piano lessons when we were younger, and it didn't really go that well. Like we
How long
used
did
to
you
have,
last?
I not long, maybe a couple weeks before I was like, this isn't really for me. But and that was one of the things, whether it be football or any other sport, my parents were kind of adamant on me playing multiple sports, and I was the one that kind of was like, no, like football's my thing. This is all I want to do. I don't want to do anything else.
Wow. I think that's a powerful statement. So for you growing up, you have this personality that jumps through the screen here, or if you meet you, you obviously can tell you've done a bunch of content for Washington State in the past, right? How do you think that personality came to be?
I like to say it's a balance between my parents, because anyone that's ever met my mom, they sit there and say, oh, that's where you get it from, right? That outgoing, that loudness, that like, I'm here to start a conversation with you. And then I think kind of the how I talk is more kind of like my dad. Um, Always trying to like crack a joke or trying to, be a smart aleck sometimes, doing things like that. It's like anyone that actually knows my dad thinks he's the funniest person in the world. So it's like a combination of the outgoingness from her and the comedic aspect from him is kind of where I fit right in the middle of it.
So the comedic aspect that you just referenced from your family, like when did you embrace your big personality? Because I'd imagine you felt it, but
Yeah.
when do you kind of put it on display?
I it's kind of hard to, I think it'd be about sixth grade. I was
Oh,
always sad to say on the report card, I was one of those easily distracted by other kids.
we have
So
one of those in this house too. Yeah. Yeah.
so it's anytime, it's from for as long as I can remember, I kind of was known as the outgoing guy and always talking and things like that. We have this running joke just more as a late that I'm that guy you don't want to get stuck next to on an airplane because we'll end up talking the whole time. And it's true, I found myself like just waiting for that floodgate to open up where they ask one question, it's boom, now you're stuck. Now we're talking the whole time.
Dude, that's so funny. Do you know that I met my wife on a plane?
Really?
And I was just waiting for that floodgate to open up,
See?
and it was on, 100%.
Like it's actually kind of surprising me sometimes. I'll be on these 2-hour flights and they'll say something, and now it's wow. I follow some of these people on Instagram now, and I'm keeping up with their lives. It's just such a strange, and but I enjoy it. Just meeting new people is kind of a passion that I have. And just starting new relationships and forming new connections. Um, is just always so fun and exciting to me, and just kind of see what other people are about and kind of where they come from and hearing their story also just is super exciting for me.
We live in a world where, as I hold up my mobile device, like we can be buried in it, just
Mhm.
buried in it, and we can lack connectivity. I've talked to a lot of coaches that are like, yeah, my kids only want to communicate on text, but don't
Mhm.
really want to communicate verbally. For you, I feel like you're the opposite. Like,
Right.
what has you seen? Like, of course, that allows you to flourish as a human, but what have you seen that do to like even your mental health as an athlete to maybe not be only connected to something
Mhm.
that's doesn't have a heartbeat?
Yeah, I think it's huge, and it kind of just brings up a lot of great points where it's like you never really know what someone's going through until you ask, and no one's ever gonna know what you're going through unless you tell them. And it's just one of those things that's really important to where I feel like I have such a great connection with a lot of the people in this building that if they're having a hard time or if I'm having a hard time, we could sit down and have an honest conversation about it, and I've found myself there on both sides of it before. And it's before my freshman year, right? That would have been something that was so like frowned upon for me, like, why are you talking about things like this? Like just be happy go lucky and don't worry about negative things like that, And I think that it's been such a blessing that I kind of got over that hump to where I'm comfortable talking about mental health or hearing other people's mental health. Before it used to kind of be not uncomfortable, but kind of like scary to hear what other people are going through. Cause then you kind of have to acknowledge it. And then it's on you to see what happens next. So I think just kind of getting over that hump and being able to embrace the conversations that are being had and being able to help or be helped has just been such a huge help for my mental health. And I'd like to say other people on this team.
Was there a moment that you reflect upon? You've gone through a lot in your career as an athlete with teammates. Like, was there a moment where you said, okay, this allowed me to kick open those doors and say when I might be struggling or when I
Mhm.
might want to go talk to someone?
I think it all kind of just started after it was a combination of things, right? Like I first learned the ability to talk about it, like to talk about my own stuff my freshman year, right? Like that early, I'm homesick, I'm frustrated with how football's going. This is the first time since flag football that I'm not the best guy on the field. I'm redshirting, like I just had all these goals and expectations for myself that I felt like I wasn't living up to. And I was really just upset with myself. I sat there, I'm like, my sister's an All-American, my dad was a Pro Bowler, and I'm over here riding the bench being a scout team guy, and it was like super frustrating. And then once I was finally able to start talking about that to other people, it got easier. Once you do it once, it just gets easier after time, and you just feel that weight lifted. And then it kind of came up again after my my roommate, our teammate, Bryce passed away. It was one of those things that I kind of held up inside and didn't want to talk about. And then it finally kind of built up, and I let it all out. And I was like, wow, like, I feel better. That I was able to get this off my chest instead of just holding it in against me.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. I can remember in 2020, everybody had their version of what they were managing. And
Mhm.
for us, we had a baby, my mom had died. And I remember just being like, I don't have a tool.
Yeah.
And I remember calling for the first time. And, I'm the son of two therapists. And
Cool.
I was like, I told my wife, I was like, I need to talk to somebody. So we started doing that as a collective. And it
Mhm.
was really cool. And I remember the first time I was like talking to this therapist, I was like, okay, just like, can you give me some tools? I'll handle it. And she goes, well, maybe we should just talk for a little while.
Right.
Because, and what I learned, Ron, is that like I had all this stuff, right? And I think we all have stuff that accumulates, right? And sometimes we
Absolutely.
put it in the closet or we put it in a box and we have to manage it. And when we do, God, to your point, like you just feel like kind of this superpower to a degree of like, oh, I can see that. And now I
Absolutely.
can go work on it. So I asked you that of like, what do you think you've done? Because you're such a connector because of that experience in terms of unlocking that even for some of your teammates and your friends.
Mhm. I think it's just, yeah, like once you form some of these connections, you start having conversations. And now you're relating stories. So it's like, oh wow, like I wasn't the only person going through something like this in my life, and it just kind of reinforces, that like you're gonna be fine. Other people go through it. Life is hard, but like you're a tough person too. Tough people go through tough things, and you're just gonna be ultimately be able to get through these things. And I think it's just been great to just kind of be able to share stories, good and bad, with people, and kind of get their perspective and how they dealt with it, and it just gives you kind of more tools in your bag when you hear more things like that.
I heard that. What has your journey, because you've had a journey, right, to
Mhm.
your point in Pullman. What has it done to the relationship with your dad?
It's been great. I think he's also kind of, as I've gotten farther in my career, he's I think at first, not that he was uncomfortable, but he just kind of stayed in the background, like,
Yeah.
and I think it was kind of one of those things where he didn't want to feel like he was overbearing on me with the whole situation, right? Like, we'll sit there. They come to most of the games that they can come to, and after the game, we'll talk about it. He's like, "Oh, like what's going on with this?" Like he's giving, it's like I got another coach, but he's in my phone now, and he's in my family, and so I get to talk to him about things like that. He also has so many connections in life that I've met some of the people that he's played with, and they're like, "Oh, like we watched your game, and you really got to start working on this." And um, so it's like it's been such a blessing to just have him in my corner and his experience and his knowledge, and to show that he's invested in me as well.
Yeah. The relationship, I talk to parents a lot. I'm like, man, from high school to college, I feel like parents and kids go through such a transformation. I remember leaving high school, didn't want to hang out with my parents. Then you get to college and you're like, kind of want to just talk to somebody that I know,
Yeah.
especially early on, and you can find a bond. To your point, you said you got all these other coaches. You've
Mhm.
been through a few coaches.
Right.
What has your path been like in that regard? Because I'd imagine from the first person you met that was on the coaching staff to when Jake Dickert, excuse me, was officially named the head coach, they're probably pulling you aside first.
Right.
How have your relationships, especially with Jake, continued to evolve?
Yeah. I think it's just been really like fluid, and I mean it started just as soon as I remember we were the first year of that early signing period, I believe, at least, right? Like, and I had signed the national letter of intent, and next thing I know, 2 weeks later, the whole defensive staff is leaving. Like, so a coach that had been recruited by the whole time is gone, and just kind of that shock, and everyone's like, "What are you gonna do?" What is it, like this and that, and then I had another coach, and then and that staff ended up leaving too. And you go through these cycles, and I think that the consistency that Coach Dicker has brought to this program, and the accountability and consistency is something that like we all kind of lean on now, and we're thankful for. It's exciting and it's encouraging to know, like, hey, we feel like we have the guy for this situation in this, like he's our head coach, and we rally behind him. We're excited for him, and I think he's just transformed both sides of the ball for the better. Um, and yeah, you see some of those when new coaches come. It's like, hey, like we just want to come in and let you know this is what's happening. This is the reinsurance. This is kind of what's going to be going on, and you have a little heads up, and in you're confident in your coach because you trust and you believe in him, so it's all going to work out.
Speaking of working out, I think anybody who gets to Pullman, they're like, wow, I could see why this place is special, right?
Right.
And it happened to me the minute I visited for the first time almost 20 years ago. And now going there every season, I absolutely love it. For you, what has the community done to you from that young freshman to, I mean, you could have left last year and you chose to return.
Yeah. It's This community is amazing. I've met so many people that randomly, that again, because I need an excuse to meet people, I guess. But I've met so many people that I just feel are going to have great impacts on my life, and I could have great impacts on theirs. Right? Like this community has meant so much to me, and it's always so encouraging. I ran into someone this past weekend. They're like, "Oh, like I've been watching you since your freshman year, and I've kind of latched onto you when we met that one time freshman year. And now you're the reason I kind of root and watch the games and kind of root for the Cougs." And I'm like, wow, like who would have known that such a small interaction with a guy that wasn't even playing at the time would have changed their lives. But this community, they give you so much and they kind of expect nothing. It's all like you could ask for in a college town.
Wow, how about that? They give you so much but expect nothing. Like, what a great definition of a friend. Right? Like,
Exactly. Yeah.
especially in college athletics now, like I feel like fans can feel like what you do is a part of them.
Mhm.
And if you don't
Yeah.
do it well, they could get mad at you, right? We've all lived that to a
Yeah.
degree.
Exactly. And I've been in the points where we were in a little bit of a slump early in the season, and I ran into one of the alumni. He's like, "Oh, we've been season ticket holders since," I want to say he said 79. And he's like, "We haven't lost faith in you guys whatsoever. We know you guys are going to find it." And I'm like, you know what? Like, that's what kind of gets me excited, like that there's people that no matter what the circumstances are, they call themselves Cougs and they're going to support us.
Okay, so take us through this if we're not Cougs, this Apple Cup, because you've played in a bunch of them. You won your most recent one. Like, describe the game.
Yeah, like it's actually funny, because before I was kind of during the recruiting process, as soon as I kind of got here, everyone's like, "Oh, you guys gonna win the Apple Cup? You guys gonna win the Apple Cup?" And I was like, "What's the Apple Cup?" Like I didn't really know because everyone, it's when you're from California, it's Stanford, Cal, it's SC, UCLA, and I'm hearing about the Apple Cup for the first time, and I'm like, oh, like this means a lot. That's one of the first questions that anyone that's a Coug asks, like, "Are we going to win the Apple Cup this year?" And I was like, "I hope so." Like I didn't really know, but now it's like now that I've been a part of it, I could see and you could just feel it. Like it's one of, if not the most important, but one of the most important games like of the year every year, because you're going to get their best and we're going to give our best regardless of the situation. And it's just been so exciting to see what felt like a home game when we were in Seattle last year during that Apple Cup. To rush another opponent's field with that many fans, it's unreal. It's going to be a moment that I hold on to for the rest of my life. And there's just so much love and excitement when it comes to the Apple Cup, and it's so much competition, like between all the sports. And I try to go to all the Apple Cup games because they're exciting to watch. Everyone's going to bring their best.
Yeah, they really are. I mean, that's the beauty of rivalries. Like, there's such vitriol for the opponent, but also such like joy and preparation for the individual team.
Yeah.
There's a phrase around Washington State that I've heard a few times, which is, "If you're juiceless, you're useless."
Come on.
And I've been at practice where like the juice award of the day, you get a Gatorade or whatever it may be. Like, what does that phrase do for you? Like, it makes you smile, but what has it done, do you think, to the DNA of the program?
Yeah, I think, it kind of starts a little bit out as a joke, not a joke, but a little bit as a joke, right? Like if you're juiceless, you're useless. Ha ha ha. Like we all kind of smile about it, but like it's so true. Like if you're not going to bring energy, you're hurting this team. You're not making use of this valuable time that we have. If you're not going to maximize it, because ultimately you can only control so much in a game, but your energy and your effort's one of them. So if you're the most excited out there to play, like that spreads, and it makes everyone else more excited. It's contagious. So if I'm out there, I could be having a terrible game, but if I'm getting people riled up, someone else is going to start playing good, so, and, momentum and energy is so powerful when it comes to games. So if you're juiceless, you're useless. We're going to keep saying it, and it's going to keep reigning true.
Contagious. Totally agree with that. What do you hope that you have done or will do with the platform that you've created?
That's a great question. And I think with myself, I think of first myself, right? I think of my future goals and aspirations, right? Have I been doing enough or what's right to kind of kickstart myself into my next career path? The dream's obviously to go pro. And then after that, it's to get into broadcast. I want to be Yogi Roth. I want to be my version of it. So exactly that. Just kind of forming, and that's one of the things we talked about earlier with all these connections. Your platform can get you more connections and things like that, to where I'm elevating my own self while elevating the people around me. Because ultimately, like I want other people to know that you have the ability to achieve whatever you want, and people are here to help you, but you ultimately have to help yourself. The most important part about anything is showing up. And so as long as you show up, as long as I've been showing up, I can affect other people, right? And whether it be football related or non-football related, if you bring life, if you bring juice, there's going to be just more energy and effort put into that said activity, which is ultimately just going to help everyone be better.
Okay, so I got to follow up on that. We live in a world where the sport you play and the sport that I cover is rapidly changing.
Mm-hmm.
To that said, I feel like we could be living in a world where it's, I got to get mine, versus like, how can I serve others? How can I elevate others? What would you say to those 16, 17-year-old Ron Stone Juniors that are caught in between right now
Right.
of trying to get theirs, which is cool. Like I get all that, but also knowing like what really allows for elevation for the other part of life.
Yeah, I think it's just kind of important to understand that as soon as you get any type of recognition, other people are starting to look at what you do a little bit more. And you're just being conscious of your actions and the responsibility that that you have for your actions. Because ultimately, like there are kids that I've never met that look up to me, and it's kind of scary to think about that I'm 22 years old and I have people that look up to me. And, as at like 17 and 18, 19, like you would never kind of even think about that. Right. But that's just kind of something that comes along with the job description now. It's, hey, what you have to do, you have to make it count because other people are going to ultimately want to be in that position. And they're going to look up to you to see how you acted in that situation. And it's going to have an impact on not only your life, but someone else's indirectly.
Yeah, it seems like you take that responsibility with a great deal of importance. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just kind of it's always been like a weird balancing, to where yeah, you want to go out, you want to have fun, you want to do whatever, but you also have to be accountable. Kind of like I said, you have to be accountable for your actions. And how is this not only going to look for myself, but how is this going to look for, my family, my friends, or anyone that's associated with Ron Stone Jr. So I think that like you just kind of it's weird, to think that I could be doing something completely random or that I really have no thought of, but it could affect everyone. So yeah, I mean, it's just makes you kind of double think all your actions, and just kind of make sure you think you're doing the right thing.
I hope to be sitting next to you on a set. I'd love to do that next year, like whenever, right? Like whenever you're done playing, while you're playing, I could care less because you elevate people. And I think embracing that can allow you to spread joy or juice versus I'm going to keep it all in. I'm going to keep it all in. I'm going to keep it all in.
Yeah. And I think that's just kind of one of the other things, right? Like you never know, you never know what someone else is going through. So why not just try to bring a little bit more life to it? And I get caught up into it too sometimes of, oh, dang, I'm not feeling it today, and it's kind of just one of those, you get to make that choice every day on whether or not you're going to let something you can't control you, or you're just going to control your own actions.
Call this the final five questions.
All
First
right.
reaction, you give me your answer. Number 1, best piece of advice you've ever received is what?
I think that just more as of late in my life, it's that tough times don't last, tough people do, and I think that just kind of no matter where you are in life, you're going to go through something that challenges you. That's going to make you want to quit. That's going to make you doubt what you're going through. And you have to realize that like you're in that situation because you're capable of being in that situation. And I think that's kind of what's got me through more recently anything, just realizing that like what I'm going through right now isn't the final, right? It's not final. There's another chapter, there's another story, and I'm going to get through it. And if I do it right, I'm going to get out on top.
Worst piece of advice you've ever received?
Um, worst. I'm not sure on that one. I think I'm going to have to skip.
Fair. I know we're going to have the Stone Olympics in 2036, but I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you, it sounds like after doing some research with your siblings that you didn't have a curfew growing up. What was it like for you, if that's accurate, managing this relationship with these siblings where it seemed like you had a different set of rules when we did a little research?
I think you would be correct, with that. I think it was just one of the they like to say they like to, mom, you let him do this and that. But they didn't want to do anything, like it's not my fault for wanting to go out and be outgoing, things like that. Like my sisters preferred staying in for the most part, I'd like to say. So, but no, they didn't have curfews either. It was one of those things that it was just a really cool trust thing that we had with our parents. As long as we're very fluid and transparent with our communication, then they trusted us to make the right decisions.
All right. Sounds like it's going to be settled in 2036 in the Stone Olympics.
My team's going to be ready to compete.
Well, I want to be covering that one. Ashley and I will be there. Number 4. This show is titled The It Factory. Everybody who comes on has some sort of it factor. How would you describe yours?
I think my it factor is just it's competition. It's competitive nature. It's I think that's ultimately what's got me to where I am in life. It's yeah, it's knowing competition and having fun with it. It's having fun competing. Because ultimately, like, it's no fun to, like, if I'm so focused, like, oh, like I don't know. It's hard to, like, it's having fun while competing, because winning is fun. And if winning isn't fun, then you should be winning in something else. I don't know.
It's well said. Complete the sentence. It all comes down to, when you look at all of your life experiences, everything you've been through, it all comes down to what?
Being there. It all comes down to being there and being a part of it. Because if you're not there, you can't do it.
Speaking of there, the Apple Cup is right behind you this year in Pullman. What will that be like?
I think it's going to be a competitive game like we've talked about. It's a great rivalry game. And I think it's going to be exciting. I think the UW's been doing some great things. And I know we've been doing some great things. So I think that, again, you're going to get everyone's best. And I think it's going to be a great environment. I've heard that it's already sold out. And I just know it's just going to be one of the most, if not the most electric college football rivalry game of the year, because you're looking at two teams that this game means so much to when you look at rivalries. And I'm excited. I think we got a lot of good things cooking, and it's going to be a great day to be a Coug.
Great day to be a Coug. Today has been a great day. You brought your best, Ron Stone Jr. Thank you for coming on to the show, man.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Yogi.
Heck yeah. It has been a joy to get to know Ron Stone Jr. I'm glad you did as well. If you want more of him or more of episodes from this show, just go to pack-12.com/insider. You go to the It Factory homepage or pop it into wherever you listen to podcasts. Check it out. Ron Stone Jr. and a bunch of other talented guests is here we are. It's hard to believe. Final week of the regular season and the Apple Cup. Enjoy. If you're juiceless, you're useless. Well, Ron Stone Jr. was juiceful and useful, as is TJ Brassel, not only our producer extraordinaire. This is the Afterglow, where we kind of look back on the joy that which was the 30-minute conversation. TJ, you knew more about Ron Stone Jr. than I could have even thought I knew. And I thought I knew a lot, bro.
Well, it helps when you were a teammate with one of his sisters, and the other sister also went to Oregon with you, Rana and Ronica. Ronica played volleyball. Rana was my teammate. So I've known RJ. I call him RJ. Everyone calls him Ron Stone Jr. now. I'm like, what I asked him beforehand. I was like, what am I supposed to call you? Like, can I still go with RJ? But I've known him since probably like early high school, I think is when it was. I was talking to his sister today. I was like, all right, give me some dirt. Like, what are some good things? And it's funny when you're talking about the juice, Rana reminded me of, so he was with them on their visits. Like, their whole family came on the visits. And so that's when we first met RJ. And when he was talking about how he came out of the shell at a young age, like, I can 1,000% confirm that, because normally like the younger sibling on the visits kind of shy and like doesn't really talk to anyone. He was like getting in there with all of the like 22, 23-year-olds. Like, it didn't matter who was there. He was he was chatting it up with us. He was racing people.
Of course he was.
He was bringing the juice. Like the juiceless are useless. I know that man is never juiceless. That is for sure.
I'll tell you what. First time I met him and really spent time with him was when Mike Leach was the head coach there, and he had me come in to do media training. And you asked for volunteers. His hand was the first one up. But you could tell how thoughtful he was, but also how curious he was. Right? He's one of those guys that I'd imagine if you're Jake Dickert and somebody asked him, how many times you got to tell Ron Stone Jr. something? Barely once. Right? And that's how he is on every front, definitely regarding media training. And to me, he's one of those guys that when you meet him as an analyst, you want to spend more time with him. You know, like he's got a ton of what we call like second sentences. What's it like to be one of the top pass rushers in the league? Like, I didn't ask him that. But if I did, he would have been like, it's great. And let me tell you how I got there. Like, he always has that second sentence. And he is a premier player. I think he's going to be a guy who can play for a while at the next level based on his technique, his physicality, right? His ability, but really his mindset. And again, here we are in the Afterglow. The show is about mindset. Like that has been season 2 for me, whether it's Jack Coletto or here, you can go back to the first conversation with Caleb Williams. Like it's about mindset, man. And that was cool to go there with him.
He went in depth on stuff like, and he was talking about mental health, like to see that evolution too, not just like the energetic side of Ron Stone Jr., but to see the depth of him and him talking about that was really, really cool. It was cool to, even for someone who's known him for a minute, to kind of see a whole new side of him was fun.
Yeah. So here's my soapbox moment of the day. Let's not forget that college athletics, college football, for everything that is about off the field, NIL, deals, transferring, etc., it's still a developmental sport, dramatically developmental. Look at Ron Stone Jr. He came in and has developed into a guy who has his degree, into a man who will go to the NFL, into a team captain, a team leader, a community leader, somebody who's leveraged Washington State to develop his career beyond football. Talk to Pat Chun about him or Jake Dick or anywhere in between. They rave about him. And I just say that it's important to remember that like everybody isn't 3 and out. And even if you are, you still have to develop. And I just think the holistic development of him in Pullman has been a blueprint for a 1-star or a 5-star. And I hope that the people listening to this, or the parents listening to this, or the coaches listening to this are like, yeah, great reminder if you needed it, that it's about developing. Ron is a beautiful example. Might be one of the top 5 examples I've seen in the last decade in this league. You know, calling games for over 10 years now in the pack. He'd be a first teamer in terms of guys that have just evolved and developed before your eyes and you just fall in love with.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. And I still have to get to what question I wish you asked.
Yeah, let's go. And you had about 1 million questions to ask him.
Maybe 1,000,002. But before that, he said one thing that I want to mention. It was very subtle, but it stood out to me a lot. There's kind of 2 parts to it. One, when he was talking about like after football and wanting to do broadcasting and stuff. For one, when he was talking about being a role model to people he didn't even realize. Clearly, Yogs, you're a role model. He said he wanted to be the next Yogi Roth. So you're setting an example there. But the part that he said that I think not a lot of people may have caught was he was like, I want to be my version of Yogi Roth, which stood out to me because you hear a lot of people talk when even like great athletes, when someone compares them, oh, are you the next Tom Brady? And they're like, no, I'm the next me, like stuff like that. Well, I liked his answer the best, where it's like, I want to be that, but I want to be my version of that, where he's not discounting anything anyone else did. He's like, I want to get to that level, but I want to do it my way, which I thought was really, really cool. I want to hear if you picked up on that at all.
Oh yeah. I didn't want to insert in myself too much because he had so much to say. But when I finished coaching, I told Pete Carroll, he goes, what are you going to want to do? And I said, I want to be Kirk Herbstreit. And he goes, oh, what happened to Yogi Roth? And I was like, fair. And he goes, why don't you spend the summer developing your style, your vision, your theme, and your philosophy as a broadcaster? It really forced me to get clear on who I wanted to be. Because if I just mirrored Herbie, then I wouldn't have an original thought. Right. And I probably wouldn't be sitting in this chair today. And that was a pivotal moment because I think it's good to have mentors. It's good to have people you admire, but it's healthy to say, all right, well, I can't be you because now I'm always living up to you. And that's, as we know, impossible. So yeah, I love that about him. I also love that he defined his it factor before I asked him it.
He did. He did.
His awareness is 1%er. Like that, he knows what he's about and how he can impact other people. All right, so what are your questions? I had a list of them. I couldn't get to all. I got to one. I used one question that TJ gave me today.
Well, I'll only pick one because you're right. If we went through all of them, we're going to be here for another 35 minutes.
Yeah.
The one that I feel like I know what his answer would have been, but I just wanted to hear him go off on it. So his sister was a volleyball player at Oregon. His other sister, her main event was discus. She was discus and shot put, but main event was discus. I just want to know, like, if he's going one-on-one against, I don't know if you can really go one-on-one in volleyball, but if he's going against Ronica in volleyball or going against Rana in discus, like, does he think he could win that? Because I'm putting my money on, he's going to be mad at me for saying this. I'm putting my money on both of the sisters on winning that, but I want to know what he thinks.
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be a good question. I don't know. Volleyball, that you watch some of those individuals play and you're like, whoa, the ball is just coming at you.
Yeah, you're getting out of the way real fast.
Yeah, you're breaking something. Nose, finger. Yeah, let's stay away from that, especially wait till the end of the season, maybe after Pro Day or the Combine or something like that.
Exactly.
All right, TJ, this was fun. Again, the Oregon Ducks come up in a conversation.
I mean,
the magic that you have. But it's crazy to think that here we are at the end of the regular season. We have a really fun one coming up next week, Pac-12 championship game, signing day, end of season recap. And of course, let us know who you'd like to hear from. When we get into the offseason, we dap into the alumni base a little bit. So it'll be pretty fun. What story do you want to hear from your favorite Pac-12 football player? Man, it's been a joy. It's hard to believe. Season is almost over. With that said, lots of love. Stay safe. Drop us a review, share an episode, and hopefully today made you laugh a little bit.